Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Alex here with the Flunky Entrepreneurs Field Guide, and today's field report is going to be about making videos. That's right. I've been working on, a couple of things, especially self-development, personal growth, and that, in that realm. Also with my health, but also as part of my journey is, learning how to develop new skills in being able to get my messages across on different platforms. And I had video that I was talking a little bit about, the differences in cross-platform marketing and expectations. I didn't go into specifics, but what I did was just kind of a quick take video to let you guys know that you should be expecting the difference. You should be expecting to market differently depending on the platform that you're on. Now, in these day and age, we want our videos, we want our point to get across as quick as possible in our videos. And, thumbnails are extremely important. And you'll see a lot of the thumbnails that I put up are very much, consistent as far as the expression, of being excited and happy. And, so I want that message to get across very quickly. So I try to put that, in the forefront, because everything you do, it has to be with a positive attitude. You have to have a very positive outlook on life. You have to be very optimistic and try to rule out the pessimism. Try to slowly but surely, get the negativity out of your life. Now, negativity does have a part to play in everybody's, growth process, and it'll be ridiculous of me to say you shouldn't be negative. You shouldn't, and I do from time to time, but it also depends on the topic that I'm talking about. And if I'm talking about something that has to do with personal growth, then by all means, something that is part of your spiritual and your emotional journey, you want to rule out negativity completely, right? Because you don't want to hold on to that. Now, there are certain scenarios, like, say, for instance, the perfect example is your online persona, your online brand. You're when you're posting across multiple platforms, on social media, you get a different interaction with the people who subscribe to you and the people who follow you, the people who like your content, because inherently it comes with a cost, and that cost is who do see it from a negative perspective. They might see somebody who's excited and happy, and to them that's negative. Believe it or not, I know it's ironic, but you know what? The reality is that as long as you maintain your comfort zone and you stay positive, you'll forevermore be happy with your own position, right? You forevermore be more content with who you are and the content that you provide, and the content that you put online. And always understand this: as part of being positive, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be on a level of honesty where you accept who you are and what you've been through and where you want to go. You've accepted that wholeheartedly, and you really are on a mission now just to get your message across. And that's kind of where I kind of took the bull by the horns, as I finally, and let me do something that I should have done when I was, anyway. So yeah, so it comes to the point in time where you will, oh geez, that's difficult. Oh, it was already clipped. Apparently, I was trying to push the seatbelt clip through the damn seat. Anyway, so apparently, yeah, okay, I got a little sidetracked. So anyway, we're talking about posting and being honest and being completely transparent. Sometimes that comes, like you see. I love making these live videos because it puts me on the hot seat. It puts me in a position to really, mean what I say and say what I mean, type of scenario. And I have a perfect expression, one quote that I wrote as one of my poems, and I write poems from time to time. And I went through this phase of my life where I was writing a lot of poems, and I did a lot of discovery, a lot of self-discovery in that process, and I became very self-aware. And that is a very important thing in life in general. You want to be self-aware. So how do you build the tools to be self-aware, right? One of the ways I did that was making these videos. These videos was a medium for me to be able to get my message across and really talk about the things in a neutral level. With these videos, I get to record my thoughts, and I think it's an amazing thing, because it's a daily process of self-awareness and rediscovery I talk about this a lot, and I can't say it enough. You have to be able to deconstruct your life in order to reconstruct it. And we're stuck in the middle. We're stuck in the middle of, drifting more towards, either wanting to drift more towards deconstructing our lives, to become more self-aware, or to reconstruct it, to be, to try to build it stronger, right? To try to build more mental toughness, to try to build more, spiritual awareness, to try to build more, empathy, and, to even just to build, a more, how can I say, even to build a more, no, geez, I can't even, it's not even coming to mind. Anyway, just to kind of build a character for yourself, who you are. Because again, that's all about life. We're not born with an identity, right? We kind of have to integrate different things into our lives to kind of establish our identity. And what we identify with ultimately becomes, who we are. The music we listen to, the visuals we intake, whether it's through visual medium, video, or different forms of medium, whether it's painting, or whether it's going to watch a play, or or movies, whatever it is. We ingest all of this and it becomes a part of us, right? So don't get confused thinking that that no part of your journey is to become self-aware, and at any point in time you have to stop and become more self-aware, because it's just something that it's inherent within our nature as curious beings. With energy, we have curiosities, and we want to be able to explore those curiosities. We want to be able to really discover what makes us tick, and then at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And for as long as you're processing that, honestly, and you're not trying to overwhelm yourself or bog yourself down with other people's impressions and expectations, you'll be perfectly fine and you'll be happy. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can just throw out whatever information you want if you're going to be doing video content, right? You can't just say what you want and do what you want. I mean, in the current way of things, we can see there's a lot of backlash, in social media, across all platforms of social media, right? Whether it's in the newspaper, or whether it's on your Facebook page, the closer home, it could be on your Snapchat, whatever it is, the backlash will eventually, come back around, right? And if you believe in karma, what goes around comes around, then you truly understand that what you put into the universe, you will eventually get in return, right? Now, a lot of us, we won't expect this. A lot of us will put content out online, whether it's a blog, or whether it's a photo, or whether it's, an opinion, or state of mind, whatever it is. And a lot of us don't want those opinions and those thought processes to be challenged, because it is uncomfortable. But how do you grow? How do you grow if you do not put yourself in an uncomfortable situation? And that's why I said, doing the writing the poems and stuff like that was a deeper way of searching for self-awareness, and it was great. And same thing with these videos. I also keep a journal. I haven't been very active with keeping the journal. I haven't been very much a routine with that. I was in a place in my life one time where I was journaling every single day, because I was I was in depression. I was stressed out and depressed, and I really just, I didn't have any other motivation. So the only way for me to kind of get those thoughts out of my mind, the thoughts that I was dwelling on, all those negative thoughts, more negative than positive. That's how you sink into depression. You have more negative thoughts than positive, and they overwhelm you. And I think one of the best ways that I kind of took myself out of that state of mind was by making these videos and writing my thoughts down, and manifesting those, and putting it in a place and time where they could be manifested. And that's what I did. And I wrote positive things about myself in my journal, the things that I wanted to do, the goals that I wanted to achieve, no matter how ambitious. It could be overwhelming at first. Like, I've had some really ambitious goals, and if you look back and track me down on social media, you can easily see a lot of the stuff that I established, a lot of my positive, frame of mind on, it's very ambitious. There's a lot of projects that, I took on all at once. There was a lot of goals that I wanted to embrace all at once. And, I heard this thing this morning about goals, and it was I forget, it was on the radio or something. I was listening to something, and they said, the thing about goals is they're great, but the only problem is they're in the future, and the future doesn't exist. Actually, it was a video I was watching last night. Now that it comes to mind, dang, I don't even know his name, but he was one of those Viners, or like, one of those people that make those videos, those live videos. And I think it was on Instagram, and he does a lot of them. And he said this one thing that really struck me, because I wasn't expecting it to come from that source. And he said something. He makes a lot of, like, comedy videos and stuff like that. And he said something to the extent that, it's hard to live with your goals because the goals are in the future, and that doesn't exist. It's true. Your goals, they could be manifested in the future, but the problem is we get so tied up in reaching the goal, we forget that the journey is really the quality that we build. It's really the awareness that we build. It's really, the place of mind where you really build the expectations for that success in the future. And that can change, because if your journey is too hard, to trade for the goal, ultimately you will establish a new goal, right? So the goal itself, yes, it's a good point to start. I've said this before too, and I'm probably gonna have to eat my words, but I said, place a goal into the future, and really, because at least you have something to aim for, right? And it's true. But a lot of people get tied up in the fact that, the goal is the only thing. The goal, getting there, is not the center of, it's not the focus. It's not the central point. It's more the goal. But you have to understand, just like with any habit, and that's another book, Power of Habits, I'm into right now. Great book. With any habit, to create a new habit, to kind of, you can't get rid of old habits. They're just there, right? You can't get rid of them. You just have to learn to cope with them. And that's the biggest distinguishing factor between becoming more successful and reaching your goals versus just be not, right? By just sitting around and twiddling your thumbs and hoping that you become more positive one day. Hoping that your state of mind changes, hoping that, all those negative factors in your life will one day disappear, and they won't. They will not. We'll always have these cues for us to reestablish, our memories from all those events that happened to us in the past, right? And for as long as we allow ourselves to continue to visit the past, right, then that's as long as we're going to stay in the same state of mind, the same place and time. We won't move forward. We will never progress. We will never get to our goals, no matter how bad we want them. It happened to me, being depressed and also having these great ambitions. It's hard because it comes and goes. With depression, one day it's a great time. One day you have motivation. One day, you feel like you can conquer the world. And then the next day it could be any little cue that comes up, any little cue to spark that bad habit of just sinking back into yourself and not meeting up to the challenge, right? And it's those little cues that you have to discover, right? So habits and stuff like that. I know it's kind of weird, but making videos is a lot to do with that process, and coming from me, it's been a very huge part of my life, because it helps me put my thoughts into the ether. It helps me really reevaluate what I really want. Another thing too is you put yourself out there. You put it, wholeheartedly and honestly. Like, look at this. This is on YouTube. This is for the world to see. This is not something for me to hide away in my journal and stuff like that. These are thoughts that I'm having, that I'm sharing with whoever else is out there. Looking for info or whatever it is, or inspiration, or even just looking for validation. Because that was another part of the journey too. When you start exposing yourself, you start realizing that you're exposing yourself not only to, to negativity and positivity, but the circumstances are, you're exposing yourself to really be validated one way or another. We're all, just as humans, I think we're all looking for acceptance. We're all looking for, a place where we feel most comfortable. And one of the most valuable places to feel most comfortable is in your own skin. So you have to really, put yourself in that state of mind and really search, do some soul searching. If you have to, just stop everything. I mean, I'm just coming off of, almost 2 months of just not doing, not recently. This was about 3 months ago. So I've been about a month back into my, stepping back into my journey. But I had to take about 2 months and just completely stop everything. Just ask myself, is this really what I want? Is this really the direction I want to go? Is this really, my life? Is it really something that, I can be consistent, with? And is it something that I can persistently be, confident in, and being, bogged down with depression and suffering through that, my mental illness, I guess you can say, with depression, it's been a battle. But you know what? It's for the longest time, people will tell you that you can't, depression is something that you just kind of have to muffle. You can't just, you can't just get rid of it. But the reality is you can establish new habits that will take you out of those states. They will help you, reconsider cues. Like, instead of, like, for me, a cue would be like, if I'm not progressing, right? If I feel like I'm become stagnant, and I feel like, I'm not, doing much with my life, the depression would eat away at that negativity. It loves it, it devours it, whole, and it needs more. So, once you start feeding that negative thought, and you're stuck in that depression, it becomes a vicious cycle where you're trying so hard to climb out of it. You're trying so hard to be positive, and you can for a second, but then you realize that there's way more negative thoughts in your mind that need to be consumed. Your depression loves it. Your depression will dwell on it. Your depression will tell you, it'll be your best friend, and supporter. But one of the ways that I really, really found my way out of it was, like, they'll tell you, just talk to people, just talk, reach out to people. As hard as it is, and this is another thing too, it is damn near impossible for somebody who is in depression to reach out to anybody. They need people to reach them. But one of the ways I really, I think, with my character, my personality, you know I I have these sparks of interest, and that's, I think, what really pulled me out of it. I was really getting deep. I was really getting to a place in my heart and mind where, I just didn't want to exist, and with that comes a heavy toll. You're really not in a place of mind to judge yourself, but yet that is the place and time where you judge yourself the most, when you're depressed, right? And these videos really help. So making videos, it does more, right? These vlogs and stuff like that, it does more than just entertain people. It's a reflection of your own world and your expectations, what you want to, what you expect from the world, what you want to put into the world, and what you want the world to help you out, with, as far as solving your problems. It's funny, because you have plenty of resourceful people who will reach out, to people to help them, progress, and to help them reach their goals and reach success. And they're very resourceful, they're very good at networking, they're very good at making phone calls and stuff like that. And they might, they might have these moments in time where they might feel a little depressed if things are not going their way, but they've been, their character is already established to the way where they're able to ask for help. And when they don't know, they do rely on other people to help them get out of it. But there's these, very, people like me who are very, introverted. It's very dangerous for people like us, where we want to rely on ourselves. We want to be capable. We want to be, we want to be able to stand on our own feet and not feel, ashamed of who we are, or what we represent, or what we stand for, and especially as men, to be able to ask anybody, whether it's a woman or a man, or even your pet. Even to ask your pet, just to have that conversation with your pet. And these are why pets are so valuable, but ultimately, you need to be able to get out of that state of mind. And making videos is a lot more than just entertaining, the outer world. This is why a lot of people do take, posting on multiple platforms very personal. When you make comments, when you say things, when you interject, and you respond with negativity and stuff like that, it's a lot more. It means a lot more, because people are putting their character on the line. They are putting their interest on the line, especially if they're doing it wholeheartedly, especially if they're doing it, very honestly, right? And they're being transparent. I think, like the old expression goes, real recognize real, right? So when you see somebody talking about a subject, when you hear somebody talking about a subject, and you see them, they represent something to you. And if you don't feel like they're being genuine, then of course you're going to feel a certain way. But there's the other side of it too, right? There's the other side of it, where people, they might feel like they're being reached. They might feel like in their heart, it's like, wow, like, I can't put my guard down. I have to keep my guard up. So I'm gonna make this little comment. I'm gonna post this little comment because I feel insecure, right? But it doesn't have to be like that, right? All you have to do is respond with positivity. You don't have to say a thing. You don't have to write a thing. You don't have to respond, in any other way other than just watching, take it in, right? But if you feel compelled to say, oh, that's bullshit and all this and that, by all means, challenge what you feel like is not true or honest. By all means, I'm not saying that you should stifle, your freedom of expression just because somebody feels sensitive, right? Not at all. I'm completely, for anybody who wants to say and do how they feel. But there's a huge difference when you're not self-aware, right? When you're not in that discovery process, when you're not knowing who you are and you're very insecure as a person and you just want to tease or maim, or you want to harm somebody else, whether spiritually, physically, or emotionally, you have just a consequence to that, right? And the consequence is, it might not be directly to you, but there's a consequence to the person who is trying to reach you. There's a consequence to the person who who ultimately is trying to be positive, right? And a lot of people are trying to make that climb. A lot of people are trying to do it, but there's a lot of people around us that they refuse to help in a way. They refuse to help in a way because they feel like their points of views are being challenged if they give in and if they show support, right? And it's a strange occurrence, but that's what these videos, that's the power of sharing this type of information and this type of wisdom and this type of spirituality and personal growth and all that stuff. It all has to do with everything has to do with everything. There's a butterfly effect. What you do now echoes in eternity. It really does. Now, the power of your echo really determines how strong it's going to echo throughout eternity. You might whisper, but that one thing that you say in that whisper might be so profound, and it might reach the perfect ear that they in turn will roar. They might find somebody who will roar. You might inspire 100 million people to roar, and that's how you make change. You just have to be honest, be transparent, and live as if live as if you really are ignorant live with the awareness that you are ignorant to a lot that is going on around you. And I think the only way to overcome that is just to be honest, right? And that, a lot of us suffering with stress, anxiety, and depression and all these other things that have to do with mental illness, we tend to cover it up, and it's hard to reach that point, in your life and in your personal growth process, your spiritual growth process, because we look at things so shallow as money, right? We look at things so shallow as what you drive, or what kind of clothes you wear, or what kind of, technology are you exposed to? What kind of education did you have? What kind of people are in your social circle? And like, we tend to look at these things as if these are the only factors in our lives, when in reality, these are external forces that influence us, right? And the weaker we are, that means the faster we give into temptation, right? That's what I mean by weakness, is the faster you give into temptation, the easier it is for you to be converted, right? And yes, you should be insecure about that. But in the long run, you're gonna have to be able to fix yourself. You're gonna have to be able to become more self-aware, and you're gonna have to be able to be more persistent and determined with your path, and stay on that path and stick to it. And there's gonna be people who are gonna help you. There's videos like this where you might stumble upon it thinking one specific thing, right? Like making a video. You didn't necessarily think that making a video encompassed all these spiritual aspects of personal growth, right? But I use it as a journal. That was one of the first ways that I really learned to be accountable for who I am and what I want in life. By making these live videos and stuff like that, it makes me accountable. So I would have to, translate this into my real life. These conversations that people would want to have based off of things that they've seen online, these are conversations that I'm going to have one time or another, in my real life. So, me putting myself out there is really, that's what the making the video, title was about. Was, yes, okay, I can talk about different cameras, setups. I could talk about, lighting. I could talk about, the presence. I could talk about color, associations when it comes down to making a video, or interest, or capturing people's interest. I could talk about thumbnails, when it comes down to that. I mean, I started talking about it, and that's why, I did those thumbnails, and my thumbnails are pretty consistent. But that's the technical aspect. That's more of the logical aspect. What I'm talking about is more of the it's in the other realm. It's not logical. It's more the creative side of making videos. And part of that process is very much in the beginning is exposing yourself to the world. You have to be sure that that who you are and what you want is completely honest, because there's only benefits from living that way. If you're challenged and you're honest, then you'll be able to be humble enough to admit that yes, it was honesty, and because of my ignorance, I didn't know, or I felt a certain way, and when somebody told me other, it challenged my perspective or my point of view, and then you change it, you shift, you have a growth moment, right? And that's that challenge is the deconstruction of your life, and be like, damn, like, okay, maybe I didn't know what I was talking about. And that pride is what's going to stop you. The pride is really what's going to sink you back towards depression and anxiety and stress. So in order to stop that, you have to be able to accept that who you are and what you want is something that you want honestly, right? Be transparent with it. Now, I'm not saying be 100%, because we all need our secrets. We all need our personal time with ourselves, right? We all need our personal thoughts. Now, I'm not saying share every single little detail of your life with the world, because that'll just drive you insane. I mean, you see these people who do try to, they go on social media, they try to share every aspect of their life, only to find out that, it's not really completely accepted, right? And that's where we feel challenged emotionally, and we tend to back off, and we tend to be like, oh, you know what, okay, it's kind of weird, people are trying to get me out of my shell. It's happened to me with people. I'll share these videos that are very inspirational, and they'll tell me, they'll send me direct messages and stuff, and I'll be like, oh, this is kind of weird, like, how do I respond? I think I said what I needed to say in the video, but how do I extend myself beyond that, especially when it's online, right? It's not a face-to-face. I'm very good at face-to-face conversations. That's why I'm good at making videos. But when it comes down to sharing and really thinking and depicting what I want to say and how I want to express it, as a writer, I've been very confined to the notion that I need to, really really capture the essence of what I want to say, and sometimes it takes me a little bit. So, responding to people's messages and stuff like that online is a little difficult, and it could be a little challenging, especially when it's like, oh, well, you said this or that, did you really mean this or that? And in that point, it could get a little challenging, but that's part of the personal growth process, and you have to become comfortable with that. I envy when I see these people talking about how people send them, horrible messages, and they're able to just shun it off like it doesn't matter to them. For me, I'd be like, wow, that's very personal. It's either I'm calling you a liar, or it's saying, it's pretty much challenging your honesty. And that's a tough one for me, because it's like, that's where most of my pride is tied up in. It's like, I want to be the most honest and transparent person that I could be. But when people are being negative like that, it's hard to hold that honesty back, right? Like, I want to say, you know what? Well, forget you. Then don't support me. Don't, but you don't want to be that, because the person that I want to be, right, has nothing to do with that negative approach. The person who I want to be has to do with the positive response to get more positivity out of people. I'm in the market now of the, storing up positivity points and good karma points. And it's hard, right? Because every transaction that you make with an individual, every positive transaction can result in a negative, in a negative withdrawal from you. Yeah. And that's what's hard. As you're doing business, when you're online and you're making these videos, it's a personal transaction between you and the community, right? And you have to be accountable for that transaction. Like, the things you say have to be positive. That's what I said. You can't just say what you want just because it's at the top of your mind, right? You have to have some kind of filter, right? They have to be able to be like, okay, stop, wait a second. Okay, what is the real perspective? What is this person really trying to say? What are they really trying to get down to? And then you take a moment, you think about it, and you're like, okay, you know what? I might not have the answer, and be honest. Be like, listen, I don't know. I mean, I spoke about this certain thing in the video. I can't tell you exactly. I can just tell you from my perspective, right? Because that's who I am. I'm E Flunky. I'm the Entrepreneur's Field Guide, Field Report. This is just my process. As a flunky in general, I have to find the outlets. I have to find the resources. I have to, do the footwork. And as part of my process, I have to have a good state of mind in order to pursue that, right? So that's where I'm at, and that's what I do. So when it comes down to making those positive videos, you have to make those positive videos to attract as much positivity as you can, because the more positivity you have on your side, the more you can combat negative, right? And that's what it's about. That's what changing lives is all about, is you want to get people out of those negative states of mind. And people can say, oh, well, it's all relative, because what's positive to you could be negative to the next person. And that's absolutely true. But you don't know that until you have that dialogue, right? Until you have that time to talk and share your thoughts, right? So with that being said, I don't want to keep going with this video because, I went, people might consider it clickbait or whatever, but it's not. It really has a lot to do with your future. Either way, making videos, that's how I see it from the ground up. This is Alex with the Entrepreneur's Field Guide. Peace out, people.